Hey everybody, welcome back to Discover SPRINGFORD. I'm standing in front of Anderson Farm Park in Upper Providence Township. And that's because today I'm sitting down with Julie Kovaleski and Kristi Hertzog, the dynamic duo behind the magazine Upper Providence Living. I'm Geoffrey Desiato, a local realtor, aspiring actor, and transplant to the Springford area. And I'm on a mission to find the best that Springford has to offer. I'll be interviewing local business owners, civil servants, and other prominent members of the community to find out what makes Springford a great place to live, work, eat, and explore. I invite you to join me on my journey as I discover Springford. Ladies, thanks for coming on the show today.
Pleasure.
Why don't we dive right in? Because I know everybody's excited and can't wait to talk about themselves. Why don't you start? I'll turn to you, Julie, first.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you ended up being the editor of this magazine.
Okay, so I grew up in Scranton, which is about 2 hours from here, up north, past the Poconos. And I moved here 16 years ago. Before I moved here, I was an elementary teacher, so I taught for almost 10 years, and then had 4 sons that I've raised who are now all in school, middle school, high school. So I left teaching for 13 years, dabbled back in, and kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to raise my sons and it's time to branch out into something else. So I went into sales about 4 years ago, but realized in my sales journey that I wasn't establishing the relationships that I was used to in my teaching profession. So I would run into a few territories over a neighborhood publication, and that neighborhood publication led me to discover Best Version Media, the company that I work for. And I decided to, on a wing and a prayer, hop on a plane, fly out to Wisconsin last February, and I launched Upper Providence Living in 9 weeks. First one went to print last July, so we are a year later working on our anniversary edition.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
It's when you say you just hopped on a plane,
Yes.
Was it really that whimsical the way you
literally.
make it sound?
Kind of. So again, teaching background, went into sales, different sales jobs, and researched the company and realized there was nothing like this in Collegeville. And I grew up in a small town, and I loved the connectedness of the neighbors, the community, the businesses. So when I really started to delve into Best Version Media, everything I read about it, I was like, we don't have anything like this here, and I think our community would love it. So after, of course, discussing with my husband, I didn't just take off on my own, and sharing my passion for wanting to do this and spotlighting local families and businesses, with his blessing, of course. I did. I went out for 2 days of training and hit the ground running when I came home, and I guess the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. And it's still unfolding, right?
Unfolding. Yes, and we're not done.
Well, that was cool. When we connected, I felt like our journeys were very similar, similar interest as far as getting into the personal stories behind. One of the things that we do on this show, hopefully, it's conveyed to the audience, is we like to get personal, not too personal, but as personal as people care to be about their journey, more so than just highlighting the various features or services that a business offers, because that can be tedious after a while. Like how, if you interview 5 pizza places, there's only a couple ways to make pizza, I think. But the different journeys, everybody's unique. So, but I found it's always cool to hear the story when you see those parallel lines. So when I heard your story, I was like, oh my gosh, that's you look at the community, you see where there's something lacking and something of value you can provide, and that's kind of what Discover Springford has been. And it's been cool to kind of see your magazine just grow and hopefully expand, as we'll discuss, and that we can partner in this way is
Absolutely.
cool. Print media, online, new media, whatever they call it. I don't like that jargon, but because eventually this will no longer be new media; it'll be old media, and then there's something else. But so thank you for sharing that brief history.
Thank you for
no problem.
having me here.
How about you, Kristi? You're on deck, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was born and raised in Norristown, Pennsylvania. I too was a teacher for 17 years, a high school teacher at Norristown High School. And Julie and I were introduced through a mutual friend. Julie reached out to me and asked me if I would write for this magazine that she's starting. I have a blog. So in my head, I said no. Yeah. And when I went into my house, I said, no way. Like, this lady's crazy. I'm not doing this. Putting myself out there like that where people can check all my commas and quote, you know, blog's a little bit different. So, but I said yes. And 2 days later, I quit my job.
Oh, wow.
As a high school teacher.
And I will never forget, because when I contacted Kristi, I said, so it's a part-time job, right? And she calls me 2 days later and says, I have to tell you something. I quit my job. I go, but you realize this is only part-time, right?
Oh, my gosh.
Because I thought she was calling to tell me that she was going to quit already. And I'm like, we didn't even start yet.
Yeah, no, so I don't know. I just felt like very led to quit my job. And it's been the best decision that I've ever made. But besides, you know, my job in Upper Providence Living, I am a mom of 4 girls. So we have the complete opposite of she has 4 boys, I have 4 girls.
I'm sure the ages are different, but maybe when they're all adults, you never know.
Mine are a little bit older. Right? Yeah.
Right,
but it is kind of funny, our like commonalities and differences that brought us together, which is kind of unique,
so,
I think.
Outside of having a blog, did you major in writing, or is this some passion that you've always had? What was it? Did you teach a specific subject?
I was an English major. I was an English teacher. Okay. I don't like writing. And I tell Julie that all the time. I'm like, I don't like writing. It is one of those things that you don't know if you like it or if you don't like it until you actually do it. When you blog, again, it doesn't, if I make a mistake on my blog or people don't like my opinion, don't read my blog. Yeah, I mean, with all due respect, but this is a little bit different. But I really like Julie, so it's...
No, but she doesn't do her writing justice, because every article that she writes is amazing. Every interview that, I mean, I tell her this all the time, like, I couldn't do this without her. No, like, great. This is truly a partnership.
So how did you come in contact with each other?
So when I got to the point in my journey of getting so many businesses that said yes to this idea that I was kind of selling them, that I didn't really have a magazine, but I had an idea of a magazine, again, going to training, I got to that point where, according to the steps of Best Version Media, now's the time to look for a content coordinator. So they will help you, but the home office is Wisconsin, so they could, put a post on Indeed or different places like that. But they also suggest you live in your community. If you have other avenues, try it out. So first thing I did was send a text out to a bunch of girlfriends, neighbors that I knew may have connections, and I received 3 or 4 different individuals that I interviewed, if you will, but I'm interviewing for writing when I'm not the writer. I mean, I'm the publisher, I do the sales part, and Kristi, as soon as I read what she wrote and talked to her on the phone and met her, it was done.
That's great.
Signed, sealed, done.
Yeah, it's always good when there's like, it's a very clear door to walk through, like, as opposed to like.
So it was through a mutual friend that connected us. Okay. Yeah, so I'm forever grateful to her, Lauren Machida. That would be you. Hopefully you'll eventually listen to this. So it was through Lauren that I met Kristi.
That's really cool.
And we did click, like, right away. Like, I always felt comfortable being like, no, I don't like that idea. And just having that, like, freedom with one another. Absolutely. Where we don't get offended about it's just a good working relationship.
Like, it's our magazine. That's great. It's not my magazine. It's out. Like, she can't go anywhere. I tell her this. Wherever I branch out to, you're coming along with.
That's really cool. So,
and people do ask me, and like, they're like, "Do you love it?" I'm like, "No, but I like Julie," and that's it. I mean, I am not doing the other thing justice. I do love meeting like, the families. Yeah.
Right.
It's just that, like, rawness of like putting your writing in publication.
Oh yeah, and there's it's like that dreaded blank page. Like, what's the first sentence? What's the how do I start this so that it's not exactly like the last thing that I wrote?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how long did you maintain a blog, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so I started my blog, I guess 2 years ago. This will be 3 years this summer that I've had a blog. I have, my oldest daughter has autism,
Okay.
and then I was very sick and spent 4 months hospitalized. So my blog is about autism, the illness that I was able to overcome, faith, my crazy kids.
So it's like a life,
a life,
a lifestyle, life journey kind of thing. That's really interesting. I find those stories to be particularly engaging, especially when people are willing to pull back the curtain on their lives. I personally do a similar thing. I have a vlog. It used to be a blog. I would listen to these people and they're like, you need to blog every day. And it sounds ridiculous. And you're like, and you're just like daily, like, and it's just even if it's just to work the writing muscle out, or people do this thing called morning pages, and they just do like freehand writing of 3 pages every day, just so that you constantly are in the flow, I guess they say. And I did almost daily for maybe a couple months, and I just was like, I'm spent. So
it's kind of like a diary.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. And then, you pick and choose how specific you get, versus what's going to be in a diary and what's going to be on the internet forever, or at least until they find a way to take it off. So I tend to be someone who, I stress about the wording of things so much. Like, I want it to be clever or witty, and I'll rewrite the same sentence. I'm like, that kind of defeats the purpose of what a blog is, I think. So now I've done more of just like the vlogging, which is like stream of consciousness thing, and it's called the acting realtor, because that's what I am. I'm an actor and a realtor and trying to make it in life. So I definitely, I really appreciate people who are willing to put themselves out there, because when you hear stories like that, it encourages you to say, because a lot of people say like, oh, my story is not that interesting, or like they hold back, and then they think it's just a run of the mill, and they don't realize that like there may be something they see in their life that's like an afterthought, but it could awaken something that somebody reads it or hears it and they're like, I did the same thing. Or like when we were talking about how you came across this magazine and stuff like that. Like, it's like you hear it and then like you feel, if you have like a flame in your heart or whatever starts to be fanned by hearing those stories and being encouraged. So tell me a little bit about how you collect the information in the magazine, the families, how you come across that, and then the process by which you take that information and put it in to article form.
Would you like me to start, or do you want to start?
Go ahead.
So when the journey started, obviously we had no first cover family or second or third, if you will, as I'm out there just trying to get businesses to sponsor it. Because think of it as a sponsorship, not a business advertising, because they're really just bringing together amazing things within our community. So as I would meet a business owner and another business owner and uncover this story, and like, I've lived here for 16 years and I'm still uncovering things that I didn't know existed. So just from talking to neighbors, to friends, to business owners, it would be, oh, you're going to feature a local family on the front cover. I think you should reach out to this family because, or I think you should reach out to that family because. And from there, it spiraled into something I didn't even imagine could happen. So our first couple families, it started that way. And then as we are branding ourselves, I keep saying people now nominate families. And, this is our anniversary edition we're currently working on this summer, but our families are booked out well over a year. That there's so much goodness out there, and people have so many stories that they want to share.
Sure. And if it's only monthly, there's only so many.
If it's only monthly, so it's amazing, and it's amazed us how many families have been brought to our attention, and the stories. And I mean, we could go on and on, not just on the cover families, but the stories inside, just from interviewing coaches or interviewing a teacher or interviewing a business owner in the area that uncovers more things that I feel like the circles keep intertwining, and we're helping people in the process. That's the greatest part of the whole journey.
Well, I mean, I feel like it gives people an opportunity to feel pride in their community.
Absolutely.
Especially, I mean, it's just so funny the way you talk about it. It's like exactly the same experiences that I'm having with, and I hate to keep bringing it back.
No, I'm glad you do.
But like Discover, like it's like seriously, it's like the exact same story, just in a different medium. Where it's like when I first started, I was just reaching out to people on Facebook, and they're like a random person private messaging me saying, "Hey, I see you have a business in Royersford or Spring City or Limerick, and I'm doing this thing. I don't have anything to show you of what it's going to be."
Totally relate.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, so it's so funny to hear that. Like, and what was the response that you got?
Well, so again, I had a little bit of training that I had to go to because my company is, 10 plus years old. I think it's 11 years old. So they incubated a few magazines in Wisconsin to get this started. Then now we've branched out. There's over 800 publishers across the United States and Canada. So they give you the formula, if you will. So I call it a mock magazine that I would go into businesses with and say, this is what I'm going to do here. And on a wing and a prayer, I would go home and my husband would say, they said yes. They said yes.
That feeling must have been
unbelievable. They have to pay to do it. But again,
you're gonna have to teach me this list that I have because
I'm still learning.
Right.
But I'm growing, so that's good. So I just think I believe in what I'm doing, and they believe in what I'm doing, and they want to share the goodness in the community too. So from that, it's just caught on, and I feel like I'm digressing from what your question was because I'm on a tirade now.
I don't even remember what my question was, but that's just because I'm a terrible.
I was
gonna say I'm not very good at interviewing, so.
Yeah. So that's kind of. Oh, so how did they say yes? So they said yes, and then ultimately, the first one went out, and it again we're branding ourselves. So the first one had some. Hey, this is what we're going to feature in the magazine, and write in and let us know if you want to submit anything or any content or want to be a business featured. Yeah. And again, a year later, we started with, I think, 12 businesses, and now we're up to almost 40.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And we're always on the night before the deadline.
Yes, it's crunch time.
How many words is it? How many words was the last issue? Yes. It's so hard because we want to fit so much. Right. And
you don't know where to draw the line.
We get so attached when we have to cut things.
We do.
Oh, yeah.
We don't, not because we spent time on it. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with we want it in there because it's important.
Right. And do you find is there another form that you can reuse that content that gets cut, or
we have,
or you just push it to the next issue or something like that?
We have. We've been very blessed that we've been able to do that thus far. Really,
we have. And the other great thing is, so when we started, our publication went to maybe 3,400 homes or so. So my company, Best Version Media, they set your map. They do like a market research study on an area. And I just said, I live in Upper Providence, and so I want this to be like in the heart of where I am. Right. So this is the territory that I want to go after. So they set my map, but since we've been in print, we have neighborhoods reaching out to us saying, hey, I don't get this, and I'd like to get it. How do I get on this list? So we've grown once with almost 400 homes. We're about to grow again in July. I don't know if I've told you this. Okay.
Breaking news right here on the Discover SPRINGFORD. Amazing.
So we're adding another 500 homes. So we usually go, like, our maps usually are between like 2,000 and 6,000 or 7,000 homes. So we'll be close to 5,000 homes, hopefully by the end of the summer, with again continuous growth hopefully after that, and adding more homes.
I get funny messages too on Facebook when somebody will private message me or put it on my Facebook wall. It's a good day when you're in my mailbox finally, or because people do why don't we get it, so it's great that we're able to expand.
So why don't we transition now, because we had talked about a little bit of what's starting to happen. So let's talk a little bit about how you're branching out further into the SPRINGFORD world, into Limerick Township now.
So we are launching a Limerick publication. We have a few businesses that have already committed, and so now it's up to me to go back to the cold calling, picking up the phone to reach out to businesses. And the hope is that in the fall, our Limerick publication will be in print. Wow. So we're really excited about that. Yes. So we won't be able to do the night before.
Well over.
Better not be the same deadline.
And Upper Providence will continue to grow.
Yes. And it'll be, the big sister or the
yes.
you know
like the nice thing
watching
is
over Limerick's
exactly,
magazine
and the nice thing is some of my current businesses in Upper Providence Living are joining hands with me and going into the Limerick publication,
so you're
which
not
is awesome.
Starting at square one again. You know,
no, which is great. Yeah, that's amazing. So we're thrilled about that, and we again, because people know a little bit about the publication, families have already been nominated for Limerick, and we're not even to print.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing as well.
What you should do is you should go on Lewis Road. There's that spot where you leave the borough of Royersford, and you can actually see the now entering Limerick Township sign. And then, like, a little bit further, you can see the now entering Upper Providence sign.
That's a great idea. We have to remember that.
I'm full of great ideas. When I say no, but I always find it funny when I drive there because I'm like, hey, I'm in Royersford. Hey, I'm in Limerick. Hey, I'm in Upper Providence. Like, all within, like, 2 blocks.
Yeah.
So, that maybe, I don't know if you have you might need a long range lens and like somebody who's very good at doing, you know, the forced perspective or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
I know a lot about stuff, apparently. Yeah. I just, you know, that thing with the random word that I can't think of right now. That's usually how most interviews go. That's really exciting. I'm very excited for you guys.
We're excited.
It encourages me as someone who is, you know, we kind of started our journey around the same time. Mm-hmm. You started July or June? June of 2017.
The
first
publication.
Issue.
Yep.
Was this the first issue? Right?
That was the first issue, right there. Yes.
The Prosciutti family.
That would be them.
Getting some love on Discover SPRINGFORD, so better like our page and follow and subscribe to YouTube and all that stuff. But yeah, I was just saying, like, might not catch every cover here, but we'll do a little cross by with the camera later on. But you can just see with each magazine, it starts to take on the personality of what your magazine.
It does.
So would you say that's like you had kind of started and the magazine has defined itself over time, or you didn't really? Did they give you a pretty strong template?
No, I feel like we have a lot of flexibility within the publication itself. So I really feel like Kristi and I have continue to tweak and how could we make this better, and right down to something as simple as the businesses that can write articles in the magazine, their picture is featured in the front, and now we have a biography on them. So we're just always looking for ways to make it better and make the businesses stand out and the stories stand out. Mm-hmm. We started a community corner, or community news, I think we call it, where we can just showcase different things that go on in the community. Again, all goodness, and bring awareness to families in need, families that have experienced, sickness, and how we can help them. And that's another, again, just we're always looking for ways to make it better.
Yeah, I think that's awesome because we, especially in our current society, we get very self-focused.
Yes.
Says the guy who has a vlog and just talked about it for 10 minutes on a show that he created. To see, and a lot of times it's not because we don't want to know our neighbor or we don't want to be involved, but it takes a magazine like yours or another form to put the opportunities in front of people.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden they're like, well, of course I would love to jump in and help that person, or, that person's dealing with cancer or whatever. We can set up a schedule of meals for their family. It's
and
amazing.
That's what we really have a mission,
right?
And it's more in that direction of like serving the community than, because all of these people have stories that aren't necessarily like stories that would be shared on Facebook,
right?
And they're willing to share just how difficult life can be and how they can overcome battles that we can't even imagine. So it's just great that people are willing to put themselves out there. Yeah,
for sure. And as you guys know, Facebook is usually for the highlights of your life, not the lowlights. So if you can get people to share the lowlights, the reach of people who are uncomfortable with their personal story, if they can find someone who has a similar story, it can encourage them and strengthen them. I find that part very, very interesting, and one of the reasons why I thought the magazine was so cool, because it wasn't just another ad magazine or hey, like just throw your business card and and we'll just photocopy it and put it on a page. Like there's enough of those. But the fact that there's a community,
I stress to any business that partners with me on this journey. I mean, without them, we wouldn't have a magazine. Right. So it's because of them we are able to share all this goodness, which is, again, I go back to the lacking in personal relationships. When I went into sales at first, I missed that from my teaching, and I feel like I got that back.
That's
really cool. What makes it so awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. I wish you guys nothing but the best for this magazine, for the Limerick magazine. You know, we're going to be crossing paths a lot, I'm sure.
Without doubt.
If there's anybody I come across that I think will be of interest to you guys, I'll pass them along.
Vice versa.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes.
There's one thing I've thought about, like, how can I, because not everybody watches YouTube, not everybody listens to podcasts, so I'm trying to figure out how I can make the content from the past episodes and things like that, because it's evergreen content, you know, it's always applicable, it's a personal story.
Yes.
So how can I get that into people who prefer print media? So like those are opportunities that I'm exploring as well. So, you know, talking to you guys, I get to glean a little bit of your expertise in that area, because I would be flying blind to try to like put like the Discover SPRINGFORD, like even if it's just a newsletter or something with highlights of the past episodes in written form or something like that. You know, that might be a premium content thing for some of our patrons, subscribers and stuff like that. It's, you know, everybody needs coffee table reading.
That's
whatever.
it. And that's, we talk about that
all the time.
Say that. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people aren't on social media as much as they used to be because of the whole highlight reel aspect.
Yeah, it's looking at your friends and how much better they are than you, and then looking at how terrible the world is. There's like no medium ground.
Right. And so that's our journey with this, is to spread the goodness.
Right.
You know, the one thing we did forget is we have community events in there every month too, which is awesome.
So like when you have like Upper Providence Community Day.
Yes, exactly. So every month that changes. So it's just another reason why people would want it on their coffee table and want to keep picking it up. And it's not real thick. That's another, facet of the magazine.
But it's going to be.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Like, let me grab one of the later
thickness,
ones. Like we'll look at these, but like there's content in here. You know, it's not just a bunch of, and you get a dear residence from Kristi and Julie every month. And it's great. And also it's a resource for you to always have available if you do need somebody's services. It's a one-stop shop. If you have a wet basement or and then you pull over in the magazine, you read a story about a family that lives down the street from you, and then you fix your wet basement problems. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody, right? I think so. I don't know why I picked wet basement. I probably should have picked one that was I think it might have stuck in my head, which is proof that the magazine's working, because I'm sure that I saw that as I was looking through it. It stuck in my head. So
that's funny.
The imprint on my brain is fresh. So, well, ladies, thank you so much for being on the show. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Discover SPRINGFORD. I want to personally thank Julie and Kristi for appearing on our show and wish them the best of luck as they launch their new magazine, Limerick Living. If you'd like to hear our full, unedited conversation, you can do that by subscribing to the Discover SPRINGFORD podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, and all the other podcast apps. I'd also like to invite you to support Discover SPRINGFORD in one of three ways. You can make a one-time contribution via PayPal by going to our website. You can also become a monthly contributor on Patreon, and you get rewards and perks for being a monthly supporter. Finally, we have merchandise for sale, like this t-shirt, Upper Providence Proud. They're available also on our website for $12. We also have t-shirts for Limerick Township, Spring City Borough, and Royersford Borough. Anyway, thanks again for watching. We encourage you to come back next week for an all-new episode of Discover SPRINGFORD. And until then, I encourage you to get out there and discover what makes SPRINGFORD a great place to live, work, eat, and explore.